you get to realize, abantu that you gain, the fan base that you gained from idols, they are not your fans. A majority of them, maybe 10% or 1% of them are your fans, but the rest of them are fans is their idols. They are not your fans. Yeah. So yes, they'll support you. Yes, they'll be excited about you. The next winner comes. It's chai. Like, we move.
Nkululeko on Cultr.
Nkululeko on Cultr, hello and welcome to yet another episode. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for liking, commenting, and subscribing to the content as well. We'll keep it moving, of course, one episode per week. When we can, we'll drop 2 episodes every week. Thank you so much for your support. My next guest is a former Idols winner. Can you be a former Idols winner?
Yes.
Okay.
I was.
You've not stopped winning Idols. You once
won. Of course. I've not stopped. I think it's an English thing. I don't know.
Okay.
And yes.
Owayesakuba ngomgqatso ophumelela intshatsheli yenkqubo yobuxoki kuthiwa zii-Idols. Intoni i-reality show ngesixhosa?
Yobuxoki.
Okay. And yes, I know the reality show ngesixhosa. Yanga Sobetwa is my guest. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having
Idols winner.
me.
You won Idols when you were 17?
Yes.
And you were the youngest or one of the youngest?
I was one of the youngest. Paxton was the youngest. I was.
And then you were the second.
Months, just a couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. We're uploading this content a day after your birthday.
Yeah. So I'm 22.
From the time that we
yes,
released
I'm
this.
22, guys.
Although the conversation is we're having this conversation whilst you're 21.
But in 22, please respect me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So belated happy birthday on the comment section to Yanga. Thank you, man. It's interesting, your journey with Idols, but of course, since the time that you've won it, the Idols were then discontinued. Mnet confirmed that there will no longer be Idols. Do you remember seeing that? And what was your reaction to that at the time?
They actually announced it this year. So after the season, that's going to be
season
done
19.
This year. Next year, Azika Idols anymore.
Yeah.
So they actually interviewed me and called me. A couple of newspapers called me about it, and I was pretty shocked. I was like, whoa, okay. And yeah, man, I have mixed feelings about it because, like I said, I spoke about this on my YouTube channel, but I wouldn't recommend any young person who wants to be an independent artist or who wants to own their music to go to Idols, because automatically, by being part of Idols, when you reach top 16, top 10, you are signed to the record label. Like, they have more power to say, we want you or we don't want you. Yeah. So a part of me is like, and yes, nobody be happy or not.
Let's explore the part that you appreciate about Idols.
So the part that I appreciate is obviously the fact that they put me on. Like, they gave me a head start in life, not just as in my career, but just generally in life. I'm a 22-year-old now who has like assets. I have assets that a general normal 22-year-old wouldn't have. And so in that way, they've really pushed me and given me like a head start. And in my career as well, like, I wouldn't be where I am right now if I didn't go on that platform. Yeah.
You naturally record your first album with a fan base. That's rare for any artist. Like, an artist records music and then hope that as they string their guitar, they garner traction and then get people tag along to their journey. When by the time you or any other Idols contestant who makes the top 16, generally speaking, by the time that they record their first album or their first music piece, there's already people that are some sort of fans.
Sure.
So that's the benefit of it.
I think, definitely that's the benefit. And so it saddens me a little bit that some people won't get that same opportunity that I got. And my hope would be it comes back sometime, somehow, or another competition comes up. I don't know.
Yeah, you mentioned something very powerful, of course, that you wouldn't advise a young person to go through the Idols route ideally, because naturally or automatically, by mere virtue of you reaching a certain stage of the Idols, you're automatically signed. by mere virtue of you agreeing to be part of that program, you automatically sign to a label, which may not be something that you would have wanted for your career. Let's talk about that.
Because like with me, when I entered Idols, I didn't know that. Yeah, well, now all I wanted was to be like, I was just a church girl, going to school, being in the choir. And when I saw Uloyiso Kijana on Idols, and he was 16 at the time, I was really inspired. I was like, oh, if he can do it, I can do it. And I'd love to just perform on stage. And at church, the only thing we'd perform with was like a piano, and that's it. Not even piano, intente. Let me not like glamorize it. Intente, that was it. And so for me, like just seeing like professional backing vocalists, professional band, the lights, the stage, not even the fans. Like I wasn't even attracted by that. I was just attracted by the environment. And I just wanted to see myself there. And so like I was so oblivious and naive to the fact that there are things that I am obliged to, contractually. Because, like, the moment that you go on the first audition, like, there's a small one-pager agreement that you sign. But on that agreement, it says that whatever agreement or contract that you get, you have to sign it. Otherwise, you are disqualified from the competition. You have to follow along with whatever that we ask you to do from here. So, yeah, that's the unfortunate side of it. For some people.
Okay. That's a good qualification as well, because some people would want to be part of a label. Some people would benefit from that, and they wouldn't creatively be frustrated. They would like the angle that a label is taking them to. Absolutely. At what point did you come to this realization? Was there at any point during your season that you were like, word, this is the reality? Because I mean, you're very young. And for me, I think that's actually very impressive too, the wisdom that you would have had. By the time that you were there, were you wisened up, or were you starting to see some of these things that you're talking about? And did you have a problem with them?
I didn't initially have a problem with it, because like how a 360 contract, that's the contract that I was in, how a 360 contract is set up is you are covered basically, like whatever you want to do. If you want to go to studio, they'll cover every cost and they'll recoup like 50% of what they spent, right? And so in my head, I'll still make a profit in my head. Like it shouldn't be complicated like that. Like if it's a 360 contract, they'll cover marketing, PR, advertising, like every part of a release or an album, you know? But things didn't go that way. I think that's where my disappointment comes from. I don't think my disappointment comes from being in a record label. I think it's certain things that were promised, or certain standards that were portrayed that weren't necessarily held up for every artist. I think that's where my disappointment comes from. So I wouldn't necessarily say all record labels are like that, but that was my experience. And surprisingly, like some people in the same record label that I was in don't have the same experience. Like some of them are like completely satisfied. And so I think that's where I would say specifically, that's where my disappointment came from. Bana, like you guys said, you would cover Indezitile, but they would do literally the bare minimum. And you can't go to a lawyer and say, oh, they're not doing this, because they are doing the bare minimum. But when you're asking for interviews on certain platforms, they can't really get them for you. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's damn, man. Maybe we'll come back to this label situation that you're describing now, because I want to explore it a little bit more, including your first album as well.
Sure.
When it comes to the Idols and your feelings about it, let's maybe go back to the experience of the Idols.
Sure.
Did you feel like the artist that you are now, you were always going to become, besides the fan base and the name and you being known, but the musician that you became, was it largely shaped by the coaching that you got there? Or because you came from a church background? I did choral music for most of my life when I was younger, and I know that technically I understand music and I know how to write music because of that. So there's no Idols competition that would make me understand music, have an ear for it, and be able to write it. For you, were you already a solid musician, or you feel like that benefited you, that experience in terms of your musicianship, the training that you got from that experience?
I was definitely a solid musician before that, because I had gotten, I was studying music in high school, but that didn't really add to it. But like, I think the talent, me having the talent and being interested in growing and solidifying, I guess, the talent is what made me a solid musician or a solid singer, I guess. And also in high school, I had some classical background, choral background, Yana. So those things really added to the musicianship the quality of the musicianship and talent that I have. But I don't want to undermine the process, because the process really taught me a lot. The process of being in idols, because we have some vocal coaches, and they coach you in terms of, I think for me, what upgraded was performance. Not necessarily me singing, but like, like stage presence, Yongeland, or those type of things. Those things were definitely things that I saw improvement on because of idols. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go back to, we are on that, actually, the idols thing. So I want to go back to your comment about having mixed feelings about it ending. Is it a net benefit that it's not there, or it's a net loss? Like, generally speaking, people lost as a result of it. I thought that it's a zero-sum game, really, like in terms of when I'm analyzing it as someone who's an observer.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, realistically speaking, how many people are there as contestants? Maybe there's 20,000 over a season.
Sure.
Maybe there's 5,000 over a season. And how many good musicians will come out of that process? Maybe 5 musicians will come out of that process. Like, we will get to know 5, and only 2 would go on to become musicians.
Yeah.
And for the most part, we never really get to have solid musicians from idols.
Sure.
And this is not a critique on them. Maybe it's a critique on the process, that you cannot really have a musician based on a talent show with a bunch of people voting as well. Can you just speak to that? That the whole thing about music shows, music reality shows, I think there's a new one. There's also The Voice as well. And also the criticism that it never really gives us mega stars. Every now and then you will have people like Abolo Iso who get to be known, but its track record is not that good in terms of giving us mega stars.
Look, I've spoken about this again. The reason why I would say we don't really get mega stars on competitions like that is because of the contracts that they get signed into, because as record labels that they partner with, they already have artists that they have. And so when sometimes it happens, man, they'll just shelf artists on top of artists on top of artists, just for the sake of the agreement. They'll make you release, one song. They won't really push it that much. They'll do the bare minimum that they have to do to honor the contract that they have with idols, whatever record label it is. It's Kalawa Jasmine now. It was Gallo Records then. I think Sony was as well. So that's why you typically wouldn't get mega stars from idols, because these record labels have artists that they have focus on. I don't know if that makes sense.
Each record label will have its fledgling stars.
Sure.
Every Universal, Sony, whoever will have its own Beyonce, its own Jay-Z.
Yeah, I understand.
So the last thing that they want to invest in is someone who won a reality TV show that they don't know whether or not they have the chops for it.
Exactly.
But I think there is space for them to be, because I remember I had this conversation with Zama Joabe, and she also won Idols, or she was maybe top 3, I don't know, I can't remember now.
Sure.
But she was very young and she became a star. Like, she became a solid musician from the Process Here Idols. And she spoke about the same frustrations as well. I think they have an idea of who they want you to become.
Sure.
And you have your own idea of who you
want to become.
And maybe the clash is there.
Yeah.
That there is a lack of flexibility, that if you want to record Afro-pop, they already have a pop record in mind, or an Amapiano album in mind for you.
Sure. It's the same thing that was going on with me. Like, we would have meetings and I'd show them the music that I've been writing. And then, now you put me on with a Maskandi a like Afropop producer. I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to write with this person? Because this is not the music that I do. You understand, Annie? So already I could see from that process, but now, okay, they already have a assumed or pre-planned idea of who they want me to be.
They've already looked at you. They've already looked at you.
Yeah.
And they already think that you are going to fit this package.
Sure.
This idea. That's why they'll give you those musicians. And also in their mind, they know what's the sound of the time that's selling.
Yeah.
And
they want to sell. It's a business.
Yeah. Forefront of their mind that they want you to sell.
It's a business. So I do understand where record labels come from because they want to make money and it is a business. Yeah. And it's predictable, and you have human beings who have their own will, who have their own creative process that isn't predictable all the time. And so it's difficult to make that come together or to merge that. Yeah.
There's also arrogance. I think this city is full of there's a lot of arrogance. I'm saying it. I won't allow you to say it.
Okay.
I'll protect you from that because you're still
very young. I wouldn't say that.
Yeah. You have brands and you're still very young. This city is full of. I'm from Cape Town townships. And I think that there's a lot of people who are full of nonsense. There's a lot of people you walk into the room and they think that they're the most important thing in that room. And you are a young musician. You have a fan base and people are crazy about you. You have your buzz from idols. Surely there's merit in them just trying to listen to you.
Yeah.
Mamele, just listen to this kid, hear her out, listen to how she wants to sound like.
Yeah.
Maybe find common ground with it instead of just imposing yourself. People from the city impose themselves a lot. And I'm old. I've experienced them. I've made money with some of them. And they impose themselves a lot. And it's annoying. You just want to punch someone in the face and be like, just listen. Be human, listen. But it happens a lot. It's common that people, and even in your next journey, we'll talk about that. There will be people who will tell you this is the sound that you're supposed to.
It boggles my mind because you are constantly telling them, but this is who I am, this is what I do, and they're like, no, this is who you are, and it's like, okay, I don't know, no, I've not seen.
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's the nonsense that you have to deal with. Yeah. Tell me about growing up in Delft and Cape Town townships. We are common in that area that we come from. I come from a place in Yanga. It's called the KTC.
Okay.
So a lot of the people it was shacks predominantly, and a lot of people that got their first RDP houses, they moved 20 minutes away to Delft. So I grew up with a lot of people that eventually settled in Delft.
Yeah.
Because when the government was offering housing, they were moving them from a KTC or any other township that had shacks to a Delft because apparently there was a lot of space there. It was slightly away from the city.
Sure.
Because Nyanga is 20 minutes from Cape Town CBD.
Sure.
And some people were reluctant to move 20 minutes away, a further 20 minutes. To make it 35 minutes away from the CBD.
Yeah.
How was Delft and how did it mold the person that you become now? Because you sound so impressive. It's as if it belies the fact that you come from there.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah. I'm from there. That's why I'm shit. You sound different coming from those places.
To be honest, it's been like this from a very young age. I don't know where it comes from. I genuinely don't know where it comes from. I would say it's the grace of God covering me, and the Lord giving me the maturity that I need for the journey ahead. Yeah, and I've always felt that I've always been isolated. Not to say, because sometimes some people will read that off as if une pride or uzenza ngcono kunabanye abantu, but my life was just like that. I didn't have any privilege. I grew up the same way that they did. We experienced the sort of poverty the same way that people in Delft did. Literally, we had the same experience. But I think just my life being in God's hands, and I gave my life to God, to Jesus at a very, very young age, around the age of 12, 14. And I gained an understanding of who I am, where I'm going from a very, very young age. And so my decisions from a young age were based on that. And growing up in Delft was a pretty cool experience because I got to understand and relate with different people from different places. The specific place that I grew up in is Leiden. So it was half colored and half Xhosa black people. So I was born Kwalanga. Actually, I was born Kwalanga.
Coincidence.
But I don't remember. I don't have any memory.
You didn't stay
from
there?
Yeah, I don't remember anything from there. And then we moved to Delft. Indlu Yasekhaya, we had ikrish nyana, and then Indlu Yasekhaya burnt down because of the krish. It was a tragic thing because there's a child that passed away. Yeah, well, a little baby, like an infant that passed away in the fire. So
was it shack at the time? Or
it wasn't.
RTP?
It was the creche was an extension, so it was a shack, but the house was in RTP.
Yeah.
And then from there, that's when we moved to Khayelitsha. And then at some point we moved back to Delft and to Mfuleni, Khayelitsha. Like we did a lot of moving.
Typical Cape Town person.
we did a lot of moving. In primary school, I went to 5 different primary schools because of how many times we moved. And so in high school, I was pretty surprised when I didn't move. I went to Rhodes High School, and I didn't move like a lot.
Yeah.
My family then moved back to Delft, and that's where they are right now.
Yeah, that place is very dangerous too. Although it's creative, I need to acknowledge that it is creative. Let me just say a shout out to people that I know creatively from Delft. They are part of Dragon Music. I listened to their hip hop a lot when I was growing up. They're from Delft. We were connected through Push Radio. You know, when people do music from a different area, Khayelitsha, and you're from Nkululeko, the community radio stations will connect you guys.
It's really cool. Yeah.
So Delft South Originals was also another one. DSO, that was a hip hop group that was there. Shout out to them. And then there was a theater group from Delft. It's called Lingua Franca. Umbongeni and a lot of other people that were part of that theater group. My first theater group that I was crazy about was from there at Delft. So shout out to the people of Delft. But it's creative, but it's also very dangerous.
It's very dangerous. When I was just coming out of, I think 2 years ago, my dad got shot in front of the house. We were coming from rehearsals. It was a very like I still have PTSD from that, like Andiko rights. So even going back home is really difficult for me. It's difficult.
It's a mission, yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes I opt for staying somewhere else and then I'll just go day visit Ekhaya. Yeah. Like maybe I'll go every day and then maybe sleep over twice.
Yeah. Was it a random robbery or what?
It was very random. Like they didn't want the car. It was surprising because he had just parked the car in front of the house. Sabesi Sukaku rehearsals, dropped everyone home. And a lot of the band members stayed in Khayelitsha, so we just dropped them home. And then we parked in front of the house. And I was sleeping in the back seat. I don't know how it happened. Like, fortunately, they didn't see that I was in the car. So I was sleeping in the back seat and my dad was driving. Then fine, but then the door like stuck as he was about to open, and this never happened. I'm not sure why it happened. And that's exactly when those guys, I think it was 3 guys that came, and then I saw like there was a wrestling that happened. They weren't asking for anything. They weren't asking for car keys. They weren't asking for money. It was just like Dubula Lenja, and then
oh my God.
Literally that's
was it resisting?
They said. Yeah.
Damn.
He was.
That's a bad idea. That's a bad idea.
He was. And then they shot him like twice. But fortunately, he's still alive.
Yeah,
he's still alive. And he doesn't have any deformities. Like, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Delft is interesting because Cape Town is, so the design of the space in Cape Town, to anyone who doesn't know, is that it's actually still, and well, for the most part, South Africa is like that, but Cape Town is very specific. So the design of the space is that is still maintained from how it was designed during apartheid. So there are specific places for Xhosa people, specific places for colored people, specific places for white people.
Yeah.
Every now and then you will have a black person who can afford living in a suburb.
Sure.
But Delft was interesting because I think it's one of the first townships here in Joburg. You can have a township that has a Sotho person next door to a Tswana person, next door to a Tsonga person, next door to a Zulu person.
It's very diverse.
Yeah, it's normal.
Yeah.
Although it has xenophobic elements that I don't understand.
Yeah.
Given that people grow up in such diversity.
Yeah.
But that's a story for another day. It's interesting, Delft, because that's one of the first townships, because we got to interact with colored kids at school when you go to town schools. Trafalgar, all of the schools that are in town. This is the first time that you interact with colored kids. You play in the same football team, same rugby team. But in your lived experience, your neighbor is the person who speaks the same language.
Yeah.
But Delft was the first township that I noticed that
it's mixed.
there are colored people next to Xhosa people, next to Zimbabweans, and so on and so forth. And I think that that's an interesting phenomenon because perhaps this is where we teach ourselves habits about ourselves, our food, even our temperaments and stuff like that. Like, did you find that was the characteristic of where you grew up as well? Like your street, there was like a colored neighbor next to you and stuff like that.
Definitely. Like I would find myself visiting colored friends.
Yeah.
I still remember, but they moved out. The mother's still there, but the girl's still not there. So I had like colored friends. But also I've never been a friendsy person. Like I've never been that girl like who's always with friends. As much as I did have people like that I would hang out with and friends, but like I would just take myself out and but I've always been like a loner. Yeah. So but that is the way that I grew up. Grew up with colored neighbors, Zimbabwean people, like different cultures and different tribes all around Delft. So it really helped me in terms of even my perspective of how I view people and how I interact with people, not to discriminate and those types of societal things. Yeah.
When was it clear to you that you were going to be a musician?
I don't know because like I thought when I would be like a lawyer girl, I'll be that girl. I still want to be a lawyer. I still want to be an entertainment lawyer, but I've always thought that I would be like a corporate girl. And yes, I had the music interest, but I think it dawned to me when I was watching Idols. Because Idols was like a culture at home. And that's one of the things that saddens me. Like some people have that culture and that's the way that they used to bond with their families on Sunday afternoons. And that's how I bonded with my family and in terms of introducing my love for music as well. It was not received easily. My mom did not want me to go to Idols, so I went against her will. Damn, I was like, girl. Where
was it?
And I'm that girl.
Grand West Casino.
It was in Century City.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was like, girl. And yes, but okay, fine. Uti aufuni. Okay, sharp. I didn't argue. I'm that person, okay? If I'm not gonna do something, I'm not gonna argue with you. I'm just not gonna do it. Yeah, well. And I went against her will. And then we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that more. Or do you want me to elaborate on it?
Obviously, you're my guest.
Yeah, okay. So I went against her will. She was still not for it, like until top 16 Idols. And I was like, girl, before unsupported because like
that's unfortunately with black parents that happens. Like I don't think my mother knows what I do actually. Like,
is it?
She doesn't know. As old as I am, she doesn't know what I do. Like but as soon as they start seeing you buying them certain things,
we had a conversation about it. Like I was like, Mama, there's no way that you are my parent. Like you can't. I understand that. Fine, the music industry is corrupt and stuff, but like, give me a chance. Like, just give it a chance. Like, we had a serious fight about it. Like, what do I want at some point? Like, a lot has happened in my life, but I'm not public. Like, I don't talk a lot.
She chased you out in what sense?
Chased me out. She was like, girl,
you know,
this is my house. This is my house. And this was right after Idols. This is my house.
After you won?
Yes. Kuba bank statement. Bank statement. I want to see how you spend your money, where you spend your money, how you like. I was like, Mama, I can't do that because it's a little bit weird because you're the one who didn't want me to go to Idols. Now you want to know how I spend my money, where I spend my money. I understand, sharp. Wow, you want to guide me as a parent, but you've seen the way I am. I've always been independent, even mentally. Like you know how I am. I've always been. Of course, at some point, okay, she's still a kid, obviously. But like, it was like, two-faced, not calling my mom two-faced, but
that was your feeling at the time.
That's how I felt at the time. But the same person, it can't be the same person who's doing this. Yeah, so that's what she had a problem with. Like me actually confronting the fact that she's contradicting herself. So she had a problem with that. And that's where she chased me out. And low-key, I was happy. It sounds really bad to say that, but I felt really like, and as no compressed I felt
you were looking forward to your independence.
Yes, I was, because I felt like, no man, we can't be doing this. And because of that, because of me not wanting to give her my bank statement and stuff, she took my ID, my passport, my phone. She was like, you're not going anywhere.
This was a proper falling out.
It was a huge fallout. But then eventually I was like, Pumagwam, and then she was the same person on the same day who was like, come back. And I was like, girl, man. That's when eventually I moved out, and then I got my own place.
Yeah.
The place that everyone says I bought for my family.
Oh yeah, I was about to go there. That it's interesting that happened, but we also know that you bought them a house. What's that about?
I never bought my family a house. We stayed Sonke Endlin, but it was a house in my name. It is my house in my name.
Okay. That, technically speaking, is you providing for them.
Sure.
So, where did you get that house?
I bought it.
You bought yourself a house?
Yes.
So that they could live in?
So that we could live in.
Including yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, but because the media story is like you bought them a house.
Initially, what I said to them was, Mama, I don't want to rent. I want to move out because you see how things were going. That was right after that incident that I just told you about. But Mama, you see how things are going. So maybe I think let's move out for the sake of my relationship with you and my family. Like sometimes when you are getting older and gaining your own independence, distance can be healthy for your parents' relationship with you. So I was like, let me move out. But instead of renting, I'm going to buy a house. Yeah? Then I'm going to stay there. So for a year, I stayed there alone, and I was doing my matric at the time. I was still doing my matric. And then COVID happened. Then I lost my income, and then I was kicked out of school because I couldn't pay for my fees anymore. And then that's when they moved in with me. That's when they moved in with me.
How did you feel about it being characterized in the media as you buying them a house? Did you go out of your way to correct the media? Because that was the story, that you bought them a house.
Maybe let me go back to my Instagram and see what I said, because I remember me mentioning something about my family, but it is an archived post now, so I was
cool. I mean, I know that I saw this somewhere. It seems that Idol's 2018 winner finally got her 1 million prize. Taking to social media this week, the rising star shared to her thousands of fans that she had bought a house for her family. Posing outside their new home, Sobethwa excitedly shared, "It's another good morning for you for the young lights."
I don't remember talking to any media outlets about that.
Well, but we are living in the new age where media people take social media posts and they write articles about
Of course. Kamenji, I'm almost
there.
I'm almost there. Ekabani tat?
Yeah, baban babogele. Load shedding.
I will katani guys. Nani tending I edit.
So edit. This shit is.
Editani katani.
Are you willing to edit this part out, Khacha? No, this is content. That's nothing. It's not fine. We get into the habit of editing out things. Waiqala. Also zuyeke. So to anyone who's watching, she's still looking for her post. There you go.
Yes. It's another good morning for the young lights. If you can see camera, it's another. I finally purchased a property for my family and I.
I can see why they just took the family and ran with it. It makes sense. No, it's not a dramatic story. I mean, it's a feel-good story that a young kid who won Idols bought a family a house. The thing is, so media is about narratives, how we frame stories. So if you and I talk in this platform now, if we were talking about shit that people don't care about, that's not spicy enough, it's difficult to sell the episode.
True.
Yeah, well,
true. Because
it's difficult for me to get a headline out of it.
True.
But I could use your father being shot as a headline.
Yo!
I could use your mother, the beef that you had, as a headline. I could also use it won't be malicious experience. Okay. But I will mention in the headlining that you talk about idols being cancelled.
Sure.
And maybe someone else will clip it.
Yes, I know.
Where you're saying that you wouldn't advise young people to be on idols.
And I'm not ashamed about that.
Yeah, but yeah. So it's framing narratives. It's very difficult to sell because people are addicted to negative nonsense.
Sure.
So it's becoming difficult for us media outlets, and all of us who are in the business of selling conversations. It's difficult for us to sell them just honest people talking.
Sure.
There must be some nonsense. Like when I spoke to Kaifa Semenya, that went wild enough. And I had to use the part where he was talking about AKA and clearing his songs, for example. That, for me, I'm not trying to clickbait or anything like that. That was the part that we also spoke about.
Yeah.
And the interview that I had with Bougie, I had to ask him about what happened between him and Boiti. But if you listen to the whole thing or watch the whole thing, it's almost 2 hours. I talked to him about his family's upbringing. But 100,000 people on Twitter saw a clip where he's talking about the incident with Boiti.
Sure.
And that's how we are able to sell
understandable.
Yeah,
it's understandable.
Because people are conscientized to consume negative nonsense.
Understandable. I bought a house for my mom. Like, I didn't buy a house for my mom.
Well, I can see how they can take it from there.
They could take it.
From
and then some people said the person I was posing with was my mom, who was the agent. That's the agent that I bought the house from. Like, that's not my mom.
That's where we're living, basically. Yeah. You fixed the relationship with the mother eventually?
No, we have a good relationship now. I mean, every relationship has its ups and downs, especially those transitions, like those transitions from being a teenager to a young adult, those transitions and what happens there, black text, yonke lando. But it can be really tricky, and those conversations can spiral out of hand. But you have to be patient, and you have to give yourself grace and give your parent grace as well, because it's not an easy process. Yeah.
What's the living arrangement of that house? Whenever you're in Cape Town, you live there?
Whenever I'm in Cape Town, I'm not in Cape Town a lot, so I can't really say. But now,
it is a house that they stay in.
Oh, no. I rent the place out now.
Okay.
Yeah, I rent the place because guys. We had an agreement with mama. Okay, fine, I'm moving to Johannesburg, but I need some sort of stability. Like, I need a certain income that they'll be coming in, like, to, I was like, okay, mama, you will stay here and then you'll help me. Fine.
That's impossible. Yeah, that's impossible. She's not going to give you money.
Yeah, like, so I didn't even, and I just left it. And then eventually we had a conversation, okay, I want to rent the place out. That was also another really challenging conversation that we had over.
Effectively, it's like you evicted them.
Iminjalo busithi uyangixotha. Esithi mother uyangixotha kwakho. Hayi ke sisiba uyangixotha kwakho ngixelele ngoku. It was those type of conversations where, like, it was tense, but it needed a lot of patience from me, and it was a conversation that had to keep going for like about 2 years in order for it to come to life. So
but you never backed down. That's impressive.
No, I am that girl, like, it's
not something that you said to yourself, oh, okay, cool, this is going to be a difficult conversation, let me stop. You eventually got what you wanted. That's impressive, particularly as it relates to your mother, because you knew there is a place for them to stay. It's not like you're chasing them out to the streets or anything like that. And eventually you got what you want. That's impressive.
But I chased them out, and that's not the case.
No, you don't have to explain yourself to people. They don't give you money.
True.
But it's impressive.
True.
Like, I'm trying to imagine myself being a 20-year-old kid.
Like, I had to maneuver the conversation by, okay, mama, you have given us lessons, né? And you have taught us to be independent and be mature and make wise decisions, financial decisions. And so remember that, like, from the teachings that you have given us, me renting the place out and having some sort of stability where I am is a reflection of your teachings, your good teachings. So if like, yeah, like there's a lot that I had to do in order for us to get to a certain agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many siblings, and like what does a family look like when you were growing up, or even currently now? What does it look like if you include yourself being a member of that family with your mother and your father? And how many of you? So
by 3 Kaya, those are the siblings that I grew up with. And then I have three nephews. Yeah.
And there were people older than you?
I have one sibling that's older than me, and then one sibling that's younger than me.
Yeah, and what's your relationship with them? Like, what do you learn from the older siblings? Do they talk to you, give you motivation, or you finding yourself having to take care of them, which sometimes is normal as well?
Yo. And it's just like girls. We're only girls, Ekaya.
Yeah.
I think I've learned a lot, especially from my older sister. I don't think she knows this, but I've learned a lot, like just from her journey and like her mistakes and her achievements, and where life has brought her and the things that she's been through, like her bravery, her resilience, and just being a firstborn. I don't think it's an easy job. The pressure that comes with being a job, okay, it can be a job, from what I've seen. The pressure that comes from being a firstborn as well in the family is very difficult. And also looking at the fact that my mom was married, because she's my mom's child and she's not my dad's biological child. Okay. Yeah, well, so just seeing that dynamic as well, like how they merged and seeing how my dad became a father to her, it's pretty interesting, and it's a beautiful thing to see that you can have umzali that's not your biological parent, but they can still be a father to you. With my younger sister, I've learned a lot from her as well, but I found myself like having to advise a lot, which is typical for an older sister. But like she makes me feel like a proud older sister. Yeah, even with the mistakes that she has, that she's made, but I feel proud to be her older sister. Yeah.
How was the final weeks of Idols? If you can just remember, take you back to the week where you get to know that you're going to be a winner or the loser of the Idols. How was that? How did you pull that off in that season? If you can take us back there, what did you sing? Was there any moment when you felt, oh, shit, I was very good here and I'm gonna win?
I think let me think about it. My week, the last week of Idols was pretty challenging for me. I think from top 2, top 3, it was really, really challenging. Like the rest of the journey was not as challenging for me because like I viewed, like my perspective was, competition, I'm here to explore myself as an artist. Yeah? I'm not here to compete with other people. Like I've never sung these type of songs, and so I'm just here to see can I sing these songs, these type of songs, can I pull it off, right? And so every week that I was able to do that was impressive to me. Yeah? And it was easy to celebrate myself and not compare myself with other people. And so it was a healthy perspective for me, and it didn't give me a lot of pressure as well. But there was a song that I sang, I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston.
That's a very difficult song.
That was a very, very challenging song for me. That's a difficult song. Yeah.
For any female.
I'm not sure why. Okay, I know why, because like I have a pretty
your vocal range can match.
It can, but breathing, like I still was struggling with breathing. Breath work isn't easy. Because that song, like, it has a lot of sustained notes. And also the judges also saw that. But I was surprised because that's the week where Beyonce's father was a guest judge. I was surprised because he was like, oh, you can pull this off. I see you being the winner of this competition. And so I was like,
damn.
Ciao. Udlala ngami no tata. Inobe scripted le nto yenzeka apha. Udlala ngami no tata. There's no way. But As much as it was difficult, I had a lot of support. I had a lot of support from my home church, from my family, and that was a week where I just couldn't pray. Like I couldn't pray, I couldn't read the word, but I felt the support. I felt the prayers of the people that I hold close to my heart, just carrying me. Yeah,
it's interesting. That song is a ridiculously difficult song.
It really
but
is.
Of course, there are people who have the vocal range to get to it. But it's interesting you mentioned breathing because, like, growing up doing music, that's the thing. Like, one of my teachers in music was always like telling us, making jokes about gospel musicians. They're not disciplined enough because they say a word halfway and then and then they say they finish it. And that was like one of his pet peeves. Like, we don't do that here. Like, if you want to be
classical people are so like, I feel like classical people and choral people, like, there's
a technical discipline that comes with that.
But there's no need.
Bro, think about it. We used to
I've been there. I've been in that space.
Yeah. So imagine.
Like, I understand when there is a need.
We used to practice that for 3 hours every single day for 5 days, 15 hours. After you come from school, you don't go home.
Yeah.
From 3 until 6. Like, for me, I started it when I was 11 years old until throughout my high school.
Sure.
Primary plus high school. So, like, I understand why they are, like, so technically
Can you read music?
Notes in choral, not notes in piano. So, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
That's so interesting because I have grade 4 in music.
Yeah.
We would learn our music with sheet music. I cannot read music.
Yeah, but complete that shit.
I cannot read music.
When I was speaking to Kaifa Semenya, it's interesting. It's just that we lost that episode in terms of the visuals, but he says that when he got to America, so he went there.
Oh yeah, there it is important.
Yes, exactly. So he says him and Brahima Sekela, they were already performing musicians with trumpets and pianos and guitars, right?
Sure.
But they were taken back to school so that they go to class. They are 22, 23, go to class with 14-year-olds because they were like, we can hear that you are performers. Yeah. You guys think you are impressive as performers, but go back and learn the technical aspects of music so that you can be able to write it, so that you can be able to read it and stuff like that. Solid foundation of knowing music. So
in South Africa, I would say that's not it's not a necessity.
Well, it is like
in
personally.
America and stuff. Like if you want to be like,
I get what you're saying. Like, we're not serious. We're always a wishy-washy country when it comes to certain things.
But it doesn't mean that Nkululeko.
Well, to me, because I'm serious about shit.
Okay,
I think yeah, but it's like, we're wishy-washy. You could go back for your own personal.
I have grade 4 music. Like, I try to understand it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I can tell you what a quaver is. I can tell you rest. I can tell you, but I can't sight sing. Like, all my sight seeing and sight reading tests, I don't know what was going on there.
Yeah.
I would just like, I'll just sing the music from what I've heard.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
I see what you're saying. I mean, you would have known the song. The best musicians in South Africa are jazz musicians because they are international standard.
Is it?
South African jazz musicians are so phenomenal and impressive because they spend, if someone is a pianist, his name is Nduduzo Makatini, and he realizes when he's 12 years old that he wants to be a pianist, those niggas spend hours and hours with their piano, which is the same thing that is being done by Keiko Matsui in Japan or someone in Sweden, Andres Vollenweider in Switzerland. They become masters of that instrument so that then when you hear a jazz musician from South Africa and a random American musician, there's no difference. The difference is the style.
Yeah.
Like, South African music is very particular. The jazz musician is very particular. But the style is different. But those people are so disciplined in understanding their music and their instrument. They practice all the time. I love them. And I'm not even a jazz kid. I'm just learning it in the past 15 years. I've been learning it.
Yeah.
And you can't catch up with jazz because they're so prolific.
Look, the reason why, like, I commend that, I respect that, because I've also been there. Like, I commend that and I respect that. My only problem is the lack of spontaneity. And Ivane.
I get your point.
Yeah, because I'm such a spontaneous artist. Like, if you've seen me perform, especially with gospel music, I'm a very spontaneous person. Like, I'll make a song in that moment. Then what happens if you are a reader of music? Like, what's going to happen there?
Yeah, that's always the point. Like, the point of the rigidity that comes with being educated, and the creativity that comes with being someone who's spontaneous, who creates but on the fly, who create music on the fly. But you still need that solid foundation.
No, you do.
You always need that solid foundation. But you can create an amapiano track that sells 5 million singles, and you become a megastar in music. And what's the point? 5 million people know you, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes you can be caught up in your own rigidity, but I'm just saying, like, technically speaking, I really admire South African jazz musicians. Because they really, really are good. I don't know if I explored it sufficiently this week of the Idols, the final week. At what point do you know that I've got this? You mentioned Beyonce's father, Mr. Knowles. He says that you're going to win this. And you doubt whether or not that's scripted. Because you know that in your performance, it's inadequate. There are points where you should have improved. At what point do you start to believe that this is it?
The thing is, Nkululeko, I wasn't there to win the show. I'm not even saying this because of media training or anything like that. I genuinely wasn't there to win the show. I mean,
you've just said that you were always trying to see whether or not you could pull off these songs that you don't know and you're not comfortable with. And that's your metric to yourself. If I can be able to pull off this song that I'm not familiar with, that I don't like singing, but if I can sing it perfectly or decently, then to you, that's a win. So I believe you when you say that.
So, like, for me, like, whether someone was saying I could win it or I couldn't win it, it didn't really matter at the time. But like you'd hear rumors about, oh, you're winning this, what, like, a part of me, a part of me feels like there might or might not be a situation, Yobana, they know who they want to win. I don't know the competition. There's a look, there's a feel, I feel like they know who they want to win, like, allegedly. Let me not, I'm not saying, I don't know anything.
By saying you feel like, you're already saying, it's your personal opinion.
Sure.
You're not saying anything that's official from their side.
Yeah. Because, like, I've seen, like, in the competition, like, people that were supposed to make it to the top two not make it. You understand, Ane? And not to say, Bana, the people that were in the top 3 or top 2 were not, like, they're not worthy of it. But compared to the talent, the quality of their musicianship and, like, the skills that they have, like, I'm like, these people should be here. But also at the same time, there's also the aspect, okay, the South African audience, because they vote. So it can be a little bit difficult to tell, but okay, am I gonna win? Am I not gonna win because I'm talented, or because am I getting the most votes? And you never really know that until, like, after the competition. But okay, I was getting the most votes from the beginning of the competition or whatever. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's always this. So it's almost a clash of multiple interests running at the same time. If their analytics was telling them that there is a clear favorites from the audience perspective, then the commercial interests will always trump any other thing, talent, or anything else that they purport to be looking at. If from the beginning of the voting, they saw that an overwhelming number of people are always voting for you.
Sure.
They asked themselves, do we then allow this young woman to be part of Idols from the moment that they start allowing people to vote throughout until the final week, and maybe whoever wins there through the judges and the measure of the voting from the public? And it's always the commercial interest that wins, because they will say to themselves, clearly this means that if you're getting 70% of the vote or 40% of the vote, when it's split across 10 people, 40% is majority from your side. It means that 40% of our audience, because that's a sample size of the audience, 40% of them want to see you. If you are not there, they may not watch. And when they don't watch, we're not going to maximize our ability to make money. Now, this is the interesting part. There have been a lot of documentaries done on idols and those kind of competitions. And even without them, I could say that there was one case study that's maybe South Africans will relate to, would be that there was a competition called Coca-Cola Pop Stars in South Africa when we were growing up in the 2000s. there was a year where the finalists were a group named Adela. No, a group named Jamali and a group named Ghetto Lingo.
Okay.
So Ghetto Lingo is a bunch of guys. Must be 4 of them or 3 of them. Can't remember now. But they have 6-packs and they look good. And ultimately they won. And Jamali were the runners up. I think it was 3 colored women.
Sure.
They were very good vocals.
No, they're still very good. I've seen them.
They had a much more stellar music career. As a group, they wiped the floor with the Ghetto Lingo, even though the competition was won by Ghetto Lingo, because people voted for Ghetto Lingo. So that case study tells us that people, maybe it was the way it was positioned or packaged, people were voting for this bunch of niggas who are always with their
taking
shirts
off their clothes.
You know what I'm saying? And young women were voting for them. So we've seen it in many competitions where the guys that were runners up, they ultimately become better musicians.
Sure.
So there's always that interest, particularly commercial interest. It will always trump it. So if someone is a homeless person, and I believe Vincent Bones was homeless somewhat, it's a much more compelling story to make him win than to have a white young woman who comes from a decent middle-class family to win. Even though side by side, clearly there's a discrepancy between the musicianships. The other one is better than the other.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, a theory out there that it makes sense that they do that. It's not right, of course, if you're looking for talent. So that's another thing about that show. And unfortunately, the test of time always proves idols wrong. When we look at how many musicians were they able to convert into solid musicians who become stars in the country, it's a very poor conversion rate.
Yeah.
Awuzuhlomla.
Andizuhlo.
Awufuna uxoxa.
Hayi akho ndigxothisayo. I think ugqibile. Utyile.
How many? What did you win there on Idols? Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I won le moto le ubundibuza by moto Idols.
You won a car.
Moto yam leyana. Chin.
Oh, so you won that car. It's your car, of course. Yeah. So you won it there.
Hey, I won that car. I got $1 million.
After tax or before tax?
There was no tax. It's a winning.
You may owe money. Okay.
Ndifumene imali instead,
you got
actually.
Money. That's dope.
I got that, and then we got like a couple of clothing vouchers, Truwords, about an amount of 80,000, I think, and then an instrument voucher from Yamaha. Yeah. That was it, and then the record deal. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about the record label now. What was the most difficult thing about that? Like, okay, maybe let's talk about you being signed as an artist. You spoke about the fact that they have other artists that they're prioritizing. What were some of your frustrations about being in that kind of an arrangement? What did you have to deliver for them? For how long? How many years? How many CDs? Sure. As you found out your contract?
Because of how like things weren't really balanced, like in terms of their delivery, they didn't really demand a lot from me. And I think that's how I knew, but I don't think the priority are because they're not, demanding a lot from me. Like it had to be me who's asking them, when are we releasing music? Can we understand? Ane? Like it had to be me. Show me the deck. So like from there, that's how I could tell about. If I don't push myself, as a result, there's a music video that I did. There's a song called "Catch Me" that I did with Paxton. So that music video, initially, I'm the one who spent. I covered it. All the expenses came from me. I'm the one who took care of the entire music video. And then I presented it to them, and I was like, guys, here's a music video. I want to release it. And then they were like, okay, let's pay you for whatever you spent on it, and then we'll put our name on it. Like those are the things that I had to do in order to keep myself in the face of people. So it was really challenging. But I'm on a record label, but I'm the one who has to push myself like completely, entirely. Like if I don't do it, no one's gonna do it for me. And not really, no one is gonna do it for me. Like if I don't back myself up financially, etc. No one is gonna back me up. Like that's how the arrangement was.
Other than them prioritizing other musicians, what do you suspect was the reason why they were nonchalant? Like they were not. You know when you have Ubrenda Fassie in your hands,
sure,
you know it. Like you're like, shit, this is Beyonce. Shit, this is like they will prioritize it. Like, did they maybe undermine your star power, your potential star power? Did they look at you and be like, nah, there's nothing we can do with this kid? Where did that come from?
I think it's the style of music that I wanted to do that made them be like, yes, she's amazing, she has vocals, but we don't think she's gonna make money for us with this music that she wants to do. Yeah, well, specifically gospel music. And that's like a thing like throughout the entertainment industry. When gospel music doesn't make money and stuff like that, and I'm not there for it for the money.
There is an audience for it, but it's in the indigenous singing of gospel music. Sure. That's why Nkewu Mhlaba is godly. Like, she is fire. That's one of my favorite gospel musicians. Yeah, Nkewu Mhlaba, and that's why Bethusile Mcinga was able to do Ngena Noah, and that becomes ingoma ehlukanisa unyaka kumhlobo nani, the song of the year kumhlobo wanene.
Sure.
And that's also, I think, nominated for the Metro FM award. So there is Ababuto Votela. There's a space for indigenous gospel music. So gospel music that's done in our languages.
Yeah.
Abosipo Makabane.
Sure.
Dr. Rebecca
and
Malofu.
That's not where I am.
And that's the thing.
Yeah, bo, that's not where I am. Like, I'm with your Shares, your Kayam Tetwas. That's the contemporary gospel. Like, that's that type of music.
It's like an American style gospel music. It's like,
sure.
Joyous Celebration.
We Will Worship.
Yeah.
That's where I am, and I don't think Gallo has ever had a musician that does that they've signed, like that they have a 360 contract with.
You've never written a gospel song in Xhosa or Zulu?
I do have a couple. Yeah.
You should, like, you should try them.
I do have a couple.
I know that you want to do what you want to do, but you should try them. Like,
no, I will. Like, it's not, Aniti, just because it's contemporary doesn't mean that it's English. And even it doesn't necessarily mean that. It could consist of vernac as well. No,
besides the style,
sure.
But one where you specifically just going out for Abanda Batala, like Abomama Batala.
Sure.
This is a song I'm doing for you.
Sure.
I'm doing this song, and maybe it's a gospel standard song. Ngena Noah. I'm making an example because it's already been done, but it's a standard, and it's like, I'm doing this, guys, for you. Because that audience is very loyal. It's a pity that we're no longer in an era of CDs. But
sure.
When the Summer Awards were in the 2000s, the best-selling musicians were predominantly Maskandi artists, Shri Nomdekala, or it was Joyous Celebration, or the indigenous gospel musicians.
Sure.
You can show them a bone, and then, because the album you will be doing will be a gospel album anyways, and you always have to be diverse in sounds. Anyhow, definitely. in a CD, CD that has 10 songs or 12 songs, you have to have different types of sounds. Show them a bone and see how it goes, because that's going to appeal to Ukhozi FM, Mhlobo Wanene. That's, you have two of the biggest tribes in this country if they embrace it.
Yeah.
And every now and then I do hear even Mungana Lenene, who is in Tsonga, but they do play Zulu gospel songs sometimes when they're doing their Sunday gospel shows. So that's like maybe the way that you think about it in terms of...
I mean, definitely. Like, you have people like Kayam Tetwa who do those things. And so, like, I find a lot of my inspiration from his type of music, especially his first album, in Ntokozo Mbambo, those type of like musicians. That's where, like, I find a lot of my inspiration, and a lot of like international musicians. So my goal is to kind of merge that together. Your Maverick City with your We Will Worship, I don't know if you know that song. That was a big song. It was an anthem at some point, like in my world. So those are the types of, that's the type of sound that I'm trying to have. Like, just merge that. Sorry for that, Mark. Just trying to merge that.
I'll write Xhosa gospel songs. I'll write them.
I do have Xhosa songs, man.
No, I'm saying gospel songs. I will write Bawethu wasemazulwini. Malingcwalisa igama lakho. Intando yakho mayifike. Don. I will write that. I will write that for you.
I will hear. Andithembi, but okay.
Ndiyakwazi ukubhala umculo nakubhalela ingoma zesiXhosa zegospel.
Uzobhalela mna?
Ndikubhalele.
Okay, sure.
Uthi sure.
We'll see about that. Will it make it on the album? We'll see about that.
Say it was deleted or your phone was stolen.
Like on the 1st of July now, I'm recording. So I have music like that I've written, like music that caters to our Xhosa audience, our Zulu audience. Like the Tswana and Don. Like I'm probably gonna get someone to write music on my behalf for those guys.
For Tswana, Sotho, baby.
And I'm even like hoping to reach the Nigerian audience. Have a little bit of Yoruba type of music.
Yeah, they have an interesting sound in gospel.
Yeah, sure. And I really love it. Like they have a big popularity of people. So if you just have 1% of their popularity, like you're fine. Yeah,
there's over 200 million people in Nigeria.
Understand? Yeah.
But most of them are poor.
It's fine. They are rich in spirits.
Let's talk about that show. You're asking members of the audience to come, members of the public to come, but they will be hearing new songs from you. Like it's part of an album.
Yeah.
Okay. I've always thought that that's interesting. Like Joyous Celebration is recording Joyous 12, Joyous 7 in front of a new audience.
Sure.
And you will hear their reactions and them singing along in that album as well. That's interesting. Have you done something like that
I've
before?
Never done something like that.
How are you feeling about that?
I feel excited about it. Like I can already imagine how the day is gonna go. The Bible says that as far as you can see, you will have, right? And so that's where I went with it, and that's where my heart is with it. So God gave me the idea about you'll record this music. This is music I've given you. So you've written this music, record it. And a part of me like just feels like, did I bite more than I can chew? Because first of all, the expenses that go into that sound, sound over 100,000 that you're spending on sound. And like it's like, okay, God, clearly you have a lot of money because I don't have this money. I don't know where the money is gonna come from, but I'm really just trusting God with the entire project. So it is an uncomfortable place to be. Like that place of God giving you a promise and then you waiting for that promise to come to life, and all you're doing is waiting. And even like there's nothing you can do about it.
But you are doing. You've organized the concert.
Oh, definitely. But then like with things like imali izosukapi, sponsors, like you approaching sponsors and that phrase of waiting, pitching and waiting, pitching and waiting for answers, those type of things, like do make you feel uncomfortable? But okay, is this gonna happen? Is this actually I actually hear from God?
Cancel it though. Like you cannot cancel the show if you ask people to buy tickets.
Yeah, and we've secured things like venue, musicians, and things like that. So like it is in the running, and even I like saying that. It is in the running, and I am excited to see what's going to happen and to see how the audience is going to receive my music. And I've been testing out the music, just posting like, just something to tease the audience with. And a lot of them are excited about it. And we've been doing a lot of, we're in the phase of marketing, hence I'm here now, marketing the actual show. Tickets are being sold on web tickets. We have like an early bird special for 250, and then our general admission is 400 rands. Yeah. What? That's the show. It's called New Era.
Yeah. Now you'll be good, man. You'll be good. I think I saw Prince KB making this update about him leaving his label.
Sure.
I've seen your update in what you wrote. Leaving your label. And I think I've seen recently Shekinah hinting to leaving a label as well. It seems as though like artists are happy when they're no longer part of a label.
It is very like it's.
This is where they would come in handy though, like with this kind of an album. You're trying to do a live album and you need someone to cover it.
Yeah.
This is where a label would come in handy, although they would have to recuperate their money. It's like they're borrowing you that money.
Sure.
They will get it back later.
Yeah.
But at least they have it, like, to pay for it in advance.
Like, it's nice because if you want to, if I'm thinking of releasing a song now, today, like if I want to go to studio now, go record that song, next week I want to release it, I can do that. The label, like, you have to wait for their process, like a month, 2 months, have meetings about it, and it's just one song. Like,
what's the meeting about?
It's about, do you think this is the right song? Who can we pair this song up with? And I think those things were done just to distract me from the fact that it's not going to happen. And that's why I say sometimes they shelve artists and they make like, okay, we are going to release something with you, and then eventually it doesn't happen. And so those meetings, I feel like in my case, were like distractions and making me feel hopeful about, okay,
the meeting took place.
And then it would go quiet for a while after we've agreed on something. It would go quiet, and then I ask again, but okay, what's happening? What's the progress? Oh, let's set up a meeting for it. I'm like, I'm so tired of these meetings.
How many albums were you supposed to give them?
I was supposed to give them 4 albums, and I gave them one album.
Them one.
Yeah, and I didn't have
4 albums across 4 years, or just stay with them for 4 years?
I think it was 4 albums across 5 years.
But if the 5 years, whatever comes first, you're no longer part of them.
Sure, yeah.
So then you've agreed to part ways without them saying you owe them 4 albums.
Yeah.
Because they didn't accept like other music that you submitted later.
Yeah.
So it's their fault on their side.
Yeah. So that's why like I wasn't expected to pay anything or anything like that. And also apparently now like the biggest shareholder is Black Coffee in Ghetto Records. And he's prioritizing the artist more than but that's what they are prioritizing now. So that's why I think that's what could have made things different for me to leave without having to pay anything. Yeah.
That's interesting. Because it would have been an interesting landscape to see. But of course, I mean, Jay-Z has been the leader of a record label. Musicians have been leaders of record labels before, and it's not working out for other musicians, people complaining and stuff like that. So maybe it may have made a difference, maybe it may not. Yeah. But you're acknowledging that maybe because he's the head now, majority shareholders, that you didn't have to pay them.
Yeah.
And there was no drawn out fight.
Sure.
How was that ending? That the moment that you were like, this is the last day.
There was no fight at all. Like I sent a request, an email requesting a letter to request to be released, and then a couple of days later they sent me an email back with the release letter, and I signed it, and that was it. Literally, like it was like that was it.
How does it make an artist feel? I deal with a lot of football players, because I'm also in football. I do a lot of soccer things, broadcasting. And I know that if a player, the one thing that a football player or a soccer player doesn't want is a clearance to say you are no longer part of Orlando Pirates or Sundowns, because it means they don't have bread. It means that they're not going to get paid a monthly salary.
I got monthly salary record label. So
for you, it
didn't
wasn't
make much of a difference.
Yeah, it didn't affect you in the slightest to go to... You're not wanted. It's like a breakup. These people don't want me.
I will. I think the only thing that dawned to me was like, okay, so you guys, it was so easy to let me go. So why didn't you just let me go? Like, why didn't you just, instead of making these promises, just say, you know what, this is not working out. Let's just part ways. So it was like, to me, okay, so all this time was just you guys, just making as if, or pretending, or covering time. I don't know, like just to make me feel like, okay, something's gonna happen, but nothing's gonna happen. So that's what dawned to me. It was like, okay, then why did you keep me here about this whole time? If it was this easy for you to just let me go. Yeah.
In the last 6 months, did you have any conversations with anyone? Like, has there been a close conversation where it's like someone really wants you, but it's like a label type of situation? Like, have you been in any negotiation with people wanting to be?
I don't want. That's the thing.
Well, there's the difference between you not wanting and someone wanting you anyway.
Sure.
So if someone approached you to be like, be part of this.
I have, like, I think 2 that I don't think should I disclose?
You don't have to disclose them.
Okay.
But the fact that you were speaking to them, did you turn them down and stuff like that?
Yeah, I turned it down because
That's
not where I see myself.
What were they offering you?
I didn't even listen for the offer. Yeah, because I think at the time they even said traumatized about it. So I didn't, and also it wasn't like a big. I don't think those labels are big labels. I haven't really heard about them much. Yeah, so I was like, I don't know you guys. I don't know. Yeah, so just I'm also just enjoying like this time of being independent at the same time. But also, like, you have different deals, like licensing deals, distribution deals. So it doesn't have to be a 360 contract in order for me to, to get into it. But I think I would be open to a licensing deal and a distribution deal, just not a 360. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when you won Idols, and in the weeks preceding that moment, that's when I would, because of course it's inescapable. Sometimes when Big Brother is coming to a crescendo, is nearing to an end of a season, and people are about to win, and when Idols, people are about to win, there's a buzz on social media that even if you don't watch, you get to see that people you're friends with on social media, they post about this.
Yeah.
Their WhatsApp statuses. So that's the first time I interacted with you, like in terms of your stuff. It's like, oh, okay, Yanga Sobetwa from Delft. I was like, oh, interesting.
Sure.
Right. And the page that was created for you had over 150,000, something like that, followers. But it's no longer managed by yourselves now. It's written Idols Yanga Sobetwa on I think on Facebook. So it's almost like Idols fever. What is the extent of someone's fame when they participate in that show? Like, did you get to see going to malls not being an impossible task?
That's crazy.
At some point.
It was crazy. Like, it was really crazy, especially like that time, like that season specifically when I just won. I remember I almost missed a flight because of that. I was in Century City. Like, you get bombarded by people. And like, it took some time for me to understand what happened and the extent of how big it was. Like, until I went out to the public and went to do some performances, I didn't understand. But when I did like start doing performances and going out in public, I didn't understand. I did understand by now. This thing is huge. Like, this thing is bigger than what I thought. It's the lack of privacy now that I had was appalling to me. I was like, so every little part of my life, like, I'll be sitting at a restaurant and someone is taking a video of me just eating, like. So like it was I never imagined it to be as big as it was. So it's huge. It's really, really huge. I don't know how it is now, but I think at my time, like that time, it was really huge.
What's interesting as a phenomenon is what you just described now, the enormity of how a person gets famous as a result of that show.
Yeah.
During Idols, the winning of it. And then there's an interesting phenomenon, the one where you are no longer an idol. You are yourself now.
Yeah.
And seeing, I mean, a lot of people, I remember when I was younger, there was a woman who was from Nkululeko. She had been maybe number one or number two, not number one. But there was a lot of frenzy about her. But I bet you if she could walk around now, no one would recognize her. Maybe 1% of the population would recognize her.
Yeah.
A lot of the others as well, Abo Enka, whoever was a participant back in the day, and even maybe as recently as 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Eventually, there's the crescendo of the popularity because there's a buzz about it.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about it in that moment. And then there's the reality of you having to be a musician on your own 3 years later. And then you're like, oh, but these were the same people that knew me. Now, why do I have to work for their attention? But at that time, like there was a lot of attention.
Yeah.
So I think that those are like interesting worlds that come together, and you having to come to terms with that you were super famous during, and then at some point there's a decline naturally because you're not on TV every week, and then you have to deal with that. You can't just walk in at Metro FM and get an interview, for example.
Yeah, it is interesting, because I wonder what I wanted to say. And like this thing that I was gonna say was very important.
Speak from the heart.
It is interesting because like that, you get to realize abantu that you gained, the fan base that you gained from idols, they are not your fans. A majority of them, maybe 10% or 1% of them are your fans, but the rest of them are fans is their idols. They are not your fans. Yeah. So yes, they'll support you. Yes, they'll be excited about you. The next winner comes. It's chai. Like we move. You understand? Because they are fans of idols specifically. So now you have to work hard to capture that fan base, to make them a loyal fan base. I don't know how you do it. I genuinely don't know how people get to do that, and I don't know how they get to that part. I think it needs a lot of PR, a lot of marketing, especially with the projects that they release. Because I released a project called Promised Land, I think a year later after I won Idols, and so the PR and the marketing that goes into that, the sponsorships, the deals that you get, those things are the things that keep you in people's faces. The YouTube channels, the podcasts, so a lot of the PR and marketing is what I think keeps you in people's faces, and eventually like gets you to have a certain fan base or a certain loyalty, and you venturing out to do other things as well that people can relate with other than just idols. It makes or helps in terms of having that loyal fan base. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you say in your characterization of it, that they are idols fans.
Yeah.
Maybe 10% of them eventually like you.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this, knowing that I'm going to speak to you, as I always think, like the night before. And I thought, like, you can actually also make a much more provocative statement to say that they're not even music fans.
Sure.
A lot of them. They are fans of a product that was created to sacrifice young people so that people can enjoy their favorite sport. People have always enjoyed the sport of choosing one over the other. I like Michael Jackson, you like Prince. I like Michael Jordan, you like LeBron James. It's like Messi or Ronaldo. People are always obsessed with this idea of choosing one contestant over the other. It's almost like a cultural phenomenon where we are sacrificing these kids for our lust for competition, and it has nothing to do with the thing that's important.
That's so
the music,
deep.
Unfortunately.
That is so deep. I didn't expect it to go there. That is so deep.
It breaks my heart because I love music. Like I'm obsessed with music, and I think that this thing that we do to young people, sacrificing them for our own entertainment, for our own curiosity, for a spectacle. You choose Yanga because she's young. I'm choosing Vincent Bones because he's homeless, and let's see if we can pin one against the other, and then we will then say my one won, and then that crescends or ascends to a peak where there's like, congratulations, you're the winner of Idols, and then fireworks, and then we go back again to that ritual. We sacrifice other young kids for our lust for this thing that sustains us in this life. Of course, you volunteer for it. You volunteer for it because you want stardom. What you don't know are the things that you never know what's inside the door when you're outside. You only know when you open the door that damn, they're killing children here, but I'm already inside. You know, and I'm not talking about idols alone. I'm also talking about things like Big Brother, all of these cultural rituals that we partake in, where we have to pin one over the other, and then there are negative aspects of humanity that they have to display so that we can choose one over the other. They must betray. They must be charming so that they can sleep with multiple girls on Big Brother so that we like them because they are players. Or they must be cunning. They must pretend as if they are friends with this one, they are real friends with the other one, and so on and so forth. And then they become winners of these competitions. And we clap for them.
It's heartbreaking, Shem.
It's a spectacle that we partake in. that we like as
I
humans.
never thought about it. Now
We've been trained
I feel so condemned because I've also like, oh my gosh. But I'm not a huge TV person, so I don't know. But with reality shows, like even on Netflix, like the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't watch TV too. I'm always sports on TV. But I'm sorry if I'm just talking shit. I may be wrong. Also, like, there's also the possibility that I may be wrong.
No, but like Glenditita, it hits. Like it hits. So like I do relate with it, and I do agree with you to a certain extent. Yeah.
Okay. Iphelile interview.
Iphelile nyana.
Yeah. It's over. I usually talk to people until there's nothing to talk about.
Okay.
I think there's 100,000 things to talk about, but they will be ventilated in a few years after you've released 2 more albums and got married and all of that stuff.
Okay.
That will be
Let's
a
go
much
good.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know
Let's
that.
go good.
Yeah. Kasivalele ngomthandazo. Mamfen.
Mamlambo. Lord, thank you so much for this moment. Thank you for Nkululeko. Thank you for his team. Thank you for this day. It is a day that is ordained by you. Nothing happens by coincidence. And we thank you for their lives. May you just bless this podcast, bless their lives, bless their families, and may you show yourself strong on their behalf. Amen.
Amen. Oh. Nkosi, thank you very much for watching us. Thank you for being here. If you are at this point of the video, thank you for watching us.